Here through the course of the morning, probably some traffic. So we'll get started though. Good morning. Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Adam Verchinsky. I'm a senior relationship manager with Pershing Advisor Solutions. And I know that I speak for everybody at Pershing when I say that we are very pleased to be hosting today's event on innovation. And something that we all hear about, innovation, we hear a lot about it in the media. We know that it's something that's really relevant for today's increasingly competitive digital global economy. But what we haven't heard a lot about is innovation and how it applies to advisors. What are we doing as an industry to build in innovation into our own businesses as advisors and how we can work with our clients? So today's event is really just one example of our overall practice management offering. And that goal of our practice management offering is to really help you, our clients, develop solutions to transform your businesses into world-class organizations. And we know that it's become increasingly complex, difficult to manage your firms with the many challenges that you have that are always competing for your attention. So what we tried to do is we tried to create the practice management offering in such a way that makes it available to you how you're most comfortable working with us. So it could be an event like today's session, could be something like our thought leadership or our guidebooks. It could be even something like customized consulting for you, right? Really tailored to what you specifically need for your business. So we've really honed that in as the new model custodian, part of the practice management offering, being core to how we work with your firms. So, as I mentioned, the programs such as the one we're doing today do go beyond high-level guidance. That's one of the other key differentiators. And the personalized consulting or turnkey action plan, that can all be accessed through your relationship managers. So besides myself, Jen Gadd's a relationship manager here today. Joe Majkowski is a relationship manager here today. They can all provide practice management services to you as well as access to other practice management offerings or experts that we have here with inside Pershing Advisor Solutions. So last thing here is that we do try to take an approach which is a little bit innovative in terms of how we deliver. So we'll tend to mix in things like events as well as consulting at the same time. So that way we can try to build a robust program, a robust platform for you to get however you want to do it. But it's really all to be an innovative approach, a little bit different from what we find elsewhere in the industry. And there's that word innovation again that we hear about. And that segues nicely just into a couple of quick words on Pershing's own innovation program. So all of you know Pershing as your custodian, but what you probably don't see is a lot of the behind the scenes effort that Pershing focuses on innovation. And we're constantly looking at opportunities to improve the services, the solutions, the experience that you and your clients have in working with us. And that comes through a lot through those innovation services. And so while we've had a long focus on innovation, there's a couple of interesting points where we've started to actually hone our innovation approach over the last couple of years. So as part of our current platform in 2011, we aligned Pershing's innovation efforts with the Bank of New York Mellon's innovation efforts as well. So it's a global corporate innovation effort that is corporately aligned. And to date, what we have done is we actually have launched an idea portal. And since 2011, when we launched that, we've had over 1,100 ideas which have been submitted, and we've had 44 which have been implemented. With fairly significant, can't share the exact number, but fairly significant either revenue or cost savings. So 1,100 ideas in the span of a couple of years globally is a very, very significant achievement. So what are some of the mechanisms that we've utilized that maybe you can think about bringing back to your own business to build in a platform for innovation? Well, a couple of things. We've done think tanks. So we do facilitated idea sessions. We started those in 2012. We do specific campaigns around challenges within the organization or within the industry, where we bring together people within a kind of contest-driven setting to come up with different ideas. We also do jams, online time-boxed sessions typically associated with some sort of technology and development for the technology team. And then we also do collaborative innovation sessions with clients. And those collaborative sessions have been very, very helpful in terms of working to understand what is it that you would like to see in working with us. So with that theme of collaborative, I'd just like to take another minute here to introduce our two co-presenters today, Bill Hortz. Bill is an independent business consultant. He's the founder of Strategic Account Management Solutions and the president of the newly launched Institute for Innovation Development. Bill has over 30 years of experience in the financial services industry, having previously restructured and developed sales teams. He was also involved very early on in an entrepreneurial way in the transformation of the advisory business to a fee-based model. Bill's married, has 2 kids as well as grandchildren, lives in the Tampa Bay area, and he enjoys reading, engaged conversation, and something called splunking. Anybody know what splunking is? Guesses? What is that? Yeah, so splunking is the sport or practice of exploring or studying caves. So perhaps at a break, you can access Bill why in Tampa Bay is into splunking, but for another time. And then our second presenter here today will be Pat Brown. Pat is a partner within the Private Client Wealth Group here at Lord Abbett. Pat's responsible for overseeing the firm's sales distribution within the Eastern United States. He's also a manager of the sales team for the relationship managers and a frequent speaker at other sales conferences. Mr. Brown brings more than 20 years of experience in the financial services industry, and he joined Lord Abbett in 1990 and holds the CIMA designation. So with the introductions out of the way, I'd like to hand it over today to Bill, who's going to get us started. Thanks, Bill.
Well, thank you, everyone. And I've heard some of you have had a major trek to get here, so I appreciate that, braving elements and being here. But this is an important topic for me. Obviously, I started an institute around it, and it's really, from my vantage point, it's trying to grapple with this word. We see it everywhere. All of us as business owners, we're reading everywhere that that's it. Grow or die has been changed to innovate or die. Innovate. You have to innovate. That's what you have to do. This is essential. What is that? It's not as well explained, and there's a big problem with this word. Grappling with this is, there's no one official definition for innovation that's readily accepted. There's no official definition. Now, let's say you want to learn on your own a little more about, okay, what is this thing, innovation? So let's Google it. You get 292 million hits. Well, that's not helping out very easily, So, what is innovation, and what can it do for my business? What are the steps that I take? How do I implement that? But first, we have to really grapple with what is it. From the Institute's perspective, the Institute for Innovation Development, innovation to us is growth, differentiation, and unique community engagement. How are you going to get those things? Through a process called innovation. And we've set a course to develop what are those tools and how do we make this into a real bottom line practice that we all can use. So that's the challenge of the Institute. And one of the major things that when you hear the word innovation, you also hear the word change. And I think all of you, as you keep hearing about change, and there's a word now being added to it, hyper. Hyper change, hyper. It's so fast that it's actually at a point. You all understand the concept here of compounding. You talk to your clients about that and how it's kind of hard to explain to clients who don't understand that. How does this happen? Well, we're now at a point that innovation is necessary because change is happening so quickly. And if you look at this chart over here, what you're going to see is you know, in the olden days, a business model was immortal. A business model didn't change much because change itself was gradual. So in the old days, as you started having, you know, the radio, the stove, this is the percentage of households that started using this innovation, this new tool, and the number of years it took. And these are segmented in 15-year increments. So what you can see is obviously, you know, some things took a while to get into the regular mainstream. But now, as you start looking at the VCR, the cell phone, the internet, you're starting to see these gradual patterns becoming very similar to the compound growth chart that we saw just before. Change is compounding. It is happening so fast, I even use the word now hyper in front of it, you know, as if you need that. But the problem is, for all of us as business owners, how do we deal with this rate of change? And bottom line, if new innovations, if new ways of doing things, if new ways of thinking, if new ways of working with each other are happening this quickly, this will affect your clients. This will affect their perceptions. This will affect their decisions, their expectations. As the world is changing so quickly, they're going to be looking around and starting to accept change. But how do you deal with your clients' perceptions as they're changing this quickly? Is your business model changing? Are you doing things to move along with change? But before we, you know, so that's the reason why innovation is so important, because innovation is basically about the understanding, the creation, the management, the delivery, the implementation of change. That is what innovation is all about. So I'm just going to stop here for a minute. And again, this is our case of what innovation is. What are your experiences? I mean, when I say innovation, what are some of your thoughts? I mean, any of you, what are your thoughts about innovation and what it means for your business?
It's critical that we adapt and evolve.
Yes, please.
So I think innovation means taking advantage of all of the technology or all of the opportunities that are out there. One of the things that I've seen as a challenge is taking advantage of them instead of them starting to own us or control us.
Absolutely, that's another perspective, absolutely. Please.
Multiple components, because one is this generational shift with the clients as well. And if you don't know how to deal with Gen Xers, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. And this is there's this movement that's starting to grow and emerge, let alone employee management and everything else. So it's a lot of different innovation in a lot of different areas.
Let me ask another question. When I say the word innovation, when you go back and see this word, how do you feel? Are you thrilled? Are you ecstatic? Are you a little nervous? Are you a little perplexed? What do you feel? Stressed. That's a good one. And the problem, again, with innovation is that many different people look at this word very differently. This comes loaded with all kinds of connotations, personal. Well, I tried something new in the past, and I got my head handed to me. You ain't going to do that again. Right? So there may be a personal experience that's behind this. And so there's context behind this. There's whether you've had a good experience with it in the past of trying something and it's working. But again, that's why it's so difficult to implement, because it's the lack of a consistent definition, the way that everyone's thinking of different things when you're talking about it. But as you all mentioned, innovation is something you need to have because the world is changing so quickly, so fast.
So I just a quick thought. I just saw a quote the other day: "Improvement is impossible without change," which is true, and innovation is part of that, I think.
You know, absolutely. And the other thing about innovation is that while innovation is a positive growth tool, it's something that helps you, develop and create new services and new revenue streams, etc. Not only is it a positive tool, a offensive tool to keep up with change, but innovation is also critical for all of you because it's a defensive tool as well. Because if you know the processes and you're really looking at change and trying to harness it, then your lateral vision is kind of opening up. And let me talk to you about what happens when people don't implement innovation. And you don't have to take my word for it. I mean, talk to the executives, former executives of the music industry, Kodak, Blockbuster. You know, there's a number of, I could go on with a list of, these are people that did not heed that they needed to change. Now, when I talk about these executives, I want to emphasize a very important point. These people, Barnes and Nobles, Borders, these people built empires. These were not stupid people. They were credentialed, they were experienced, and they built empires from a few stores to all over the country. These are people that knew their business. You want to argue with some of these people at the height of what they did in their business and how they grew? Now, one thing that they all had in common was that they said they knew their customers. And this business plan will live forever because people do not change. So, the music industry, something called iTunes was coming around. They don't understand. We understand our customers. People buy albums. They wait for a year or more for that favorite band of theirs to come out and get that album. Yeah, sure, they like some songs better than others, and so, but it's that whole experience. We know our clients. They're never going to buy a song at a time, quote unquote. Borders. They built, the second largest chain of bookstores from one originally. We know our customers. We know our customers. They like to walk into a store, spend hours there, and they love to take that book, and hold it, and hear the crack of the spine, as they open it, this fresh new book for the first time. We know our customers. We're going to keep building stores and more stores and more stores because this business model is immortal. It will not change. Because people will not change, and we know our customers. Amazon came along. Empire after empire after empire. Kodak invented the digital camera. They had a little R&D effort going. They invented the digital camera. This empire said, it's going to take generations before people start, taking, people aren't comfortable with that kind of stuff. It's going to take generations, and we're not going to cannibalize our earnings now, and start confusing our customers, and we're so ahead of the curve, let's just kind of bury that, let's put it over there. And that's what they did. Kodak was an empire. The share they had of the industry was phenomenal. They fell. Empire after empire after empire. And the great thing about innovation is it keeps you thinking, it keeps you looking, it keeps you asking questions. It's a process. They did not have a process in place that regularly challenged themselves. That's what an innovation process does. So while innovation is a process that we all can learn that help us offensively, keep coming up with new ideas, new revenue streams, new ways of working with clients, keeping up with changing thoughts, perceptions, it also is going to defend us because it forces us to have that lateral vision. But what is this thing? What is innovation? How do I do it? What does it look like? Is that innovation? This guy over here? What is it? Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What is it? How do I do it? I'm a small business, medium-sized business. How do I integrate? First, let me start with what innovation is not. It's not going in a cave, staring at your navel, having a bolt of lightning hit you and say, "Ah, I came up with a new idea." It's not mystical. This is the first person who will tell you that innovation is not about genius. He said it's about imagination. That's much more important than information. That's a quote of Einstein's. The most important thing is just to have imagination, you don't have to be a scary, smart person. Now, for a lot of people, again, innovation, there's an R&D department, there's a product development department, or there are those people do innovation. I do sales. I do this, I do that. It does not have to be compartmentalized. It does not have to, and it shouldn't be. But a lot of people feel that innovation comes from certain people. There's a trait. It's God-given. It's something that genetically is endowed and bestowed. It's not. And this guy is the first one to say, don't believe that. So bottom line, innovation is really about making money or saving money. It's doing things in a different way that uncover new ways of doing things that lead to new revenue or saving your effort to, again, doing new things for bottom line benefit. Now, again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of definitions and people look at it from different perspectives, so you have all kinds of definitions. This is a kind of good definition about innovation, to get a little deeper into what innovation is. It's short, sweet, and it really begs a couple of issues there. One, innovation is the executing of new ideas that create value. So think about that for a minute. It's the execution. An idea in your head, unless it's out, is an invention. If it's out and being used, it's an innovation. So an idea is not enough. So it's executing. It's about new ideas and making sure you have a different approach and perspective. And it has to, bottom line, create value for people. A lot of people create things from their perspective. Boy, wouldn't this be cool to do this? Yeah. Does any of your clients, would they buy it? Is it interesting? So when you really think about starting an innovation process, when you're trying to add innovation into your business, there are three different components of it, practically. One, there is this creativity process. And again, it can be made into a process. Again, creativity is not a trait. Creativity is not a person. Creativity is a process. It's a way of handling a problem. So by definition, everyone in this room and everyone you know can be creative if we show them the process and give them a little rah-rah siskumba, a little encouragement, because maybe in the past they weren't encouraged. They tried something and someone said, I'm not going to do that again. But the point is, anyone can be creative, but there's a process to it and we all can do it. Now imagine all our firms, if you looked at every company Instead of saying, here's the smart people, or here's the creative people, here's the technical people, here's the, they split up their workforce into these segments. Imagine if you looked at your workforce as everyone's creative. Think of productivity, think of new idea creation, think of what you can do if you had that perspective. So again, making creativity a process is a key element. Second, it's executing. So you need a management process. You got to drive this forward. You have to take the idea and move it along. Which of these ideas are going to create revenue? How are we going to do this? Is it possible? You need a process to kind of go through these ideas. And then it's got to be client-centered. If it doesn't solve a client problem, issue, concern, maybe an issue that they're not even aware they have an issue on, an unaddressed problem. If you make sure that all your efforts on innovation are covering these three different points, that's why this is a nice little definition, the executing of new ideas that create value. Now we're getting a little more tangible as to what it is. It's a process, there's 3 steps to it. Let me open up. Any questions on where we are so far? Or what's your response to this as a definition in the first place?
Bill, is there one of those components that you would say is more important to begin with over the others?
Absolutely. Client-centered. There's always been these issues that how client-centered are these different industries. When a product comes out, is it really addressing a client need, or was it a linear tweak to what's already there? Well, this is here, and we tweak it a little bit, it's now a little bit better, but that's from your internal perspective. Did you really vet it with a client? How many clients did you vet it with? So I think, number one, if it doesn't really add value, you can come up with tons of ideas. That's the easy part. We all can come up with tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of ideas. But what do you do with those ideas? You've got to manage those ideas, but make sure, bottom line, that you're really focusing a client need. So the crucial nature of having advisory boards, the crucial nature of client advisory boards, of regularly making sure you're digging a lot more with questions as you're talking to your clients. Dig deep. Get emotional. Because when you start getting more emotional, you're going to hear how people feel. And sometimes they're not going to tell you. But if you can kind of draw it out of them, if you get a little bit more personal and get more into really understanding how do they feel about these things. But that is crucial. Now, how do we further apply this to our businesses? Okay, it's a process. There's steps to it. And since there's steps, we can learn them. The great news is, for 4 years I've been studying, it's not 5 years, I've been studying the world of strategic account management. How do you work with clients in the most creative and novel ways? And I look across industry, across the globe. That's very important. If you want new ideas, you have to get outside of our industry to really find them and then mix and match. But you need to look for what's out there. And then when I started looking, there's this huge amount of resources out there. There's all kinds of information. How do you do this? Experiments that were done, proven processes. And we're going to go into some of those today. And it's amazing. It's amazing the fact that there's so much information out there that we're not looking at, that we're not touching, that we don't know, we even know that it exists. I was in the industry for 30 years. I was the head of the strategic account management effort at Oppenheimer Funds. Then I found out there's something called the Strategic Account Management Association. Yeah? I'm in strategic. There's a global, cross-industry. We never talked about it. It was never discussed. All my friendly competitors, whenever we got together, had a few drinks and know what's going on, stuff like that. No one ever mentioned this. I went there, and I found out that there are all these, this is a global organization, cross-industry, and they're sharing ideas. Here's an experiment we did with this client. Look at what the results of this was. Oh, but we completely changed our perspective. We did this experiment, it didn't work. Here's why it didn't work, or at least why we think it didn't work. And here's what did work. And just sitting there, all this information, and then we look at the industry listing. Financial services was the least participating industry of all industries in that association. I talked to the senior people, and they said, we'd love to have more, financial service firms in this mix. We'd love to have them, but it's difficult. The global banks were there, but it's sitting there. It got me crazed. You can tell, right? It got me nuts. So, and then I started digging more about innovation, whatever, and then here's what we see. There's all kinds of thought leaders, there's research, Clay Christensen, disruptive innovation, John Cotter, Gary Hamel. These are people who are searching, doing, learning, trying different experiments, and they're just, and they're compiling these best practices of innovation, but cross-industry, all different perspectives. There's innovation blogs, websites. Some of them are just aggregators of other experiments. Some really go and challenge to come up with original thinking. There's associations, SAM, as I mentioned. So there's this huge, rich vein of information out there. So we know where it is, okay? I know where it is, and that's one of the things that we're compiling. The second thing is that there's a rich vein of information of successful CEOs. CEOs that successfully did innovation. Well, how'd they do that? CEO of Whirlpool, Dave Whitman. He was brought into a stodgy old manufacturing company. His charge was, make this company grow. Make it grow. We haven't been doing that for a long time. What did he do? CEO, bully pulpit, he came out with this one statement. Innovation from everyone and everywhere. He said it as a mantra. He kept saying it at every meeting to all his managers, to tell their recruits, their employees and their people who were working with them. It was in their newsletters. But not only that, he created a couple of systems, a couple of processes. How do we got to get information from people to make sure that they know we're serious. We want ideas. Everyone, every single department, every person who is this company is expected to think. And they created a system to collect ideas, to go through these ideas, to vet which ones could potentially create new revenue streams for us. Well, bottom line, was that worth the effort, this innovation effort? 20-fold increase. $8 million to $1.6 billion. Innovation, making it into a process, and having leadership to say this makes sense, we're going to do this, is bottom line. A.G. Lafley with P&G. Understand what he did. P&G is one of the, very creative company, but when he came on board, their earnings initially, he's back again on board, but first time around, when he first came on board, the issue was we're starting to stagnate a little bit. So we need to come up with more ideas. So his charge was make your business grow. So what's the first thing he said? He said, number one, okay, we have some of the smartest scientists, research development people in the world in this company. Every year we're taking the cream off the crop there of new MBA students from the top schools. We have some of the most experienced executives ever collected in one company. You know what he said? Not enough. We're fooling ourselves. He started something called open innovation. Open innovation is we're going to talk to our customers. We're going to talk to our vendors and start making them strategic accounts. What are you seeing? We want to challenge you every time you come in to talk about the contracts. Where do you see industries going? What are you learning about? He made sure that they opened up the perspective And that's open innovation. Now, they also were growing by lots of acquisitions. But the interesting thing is, bottom line, he tripled profits. But when you valued all those acquisitions and the cash flow, there was $100 million, there was a premium over the cash flow, and that was called the innovation premium in this company. Because of the fact that people started expecting, they're going to keep coming up with new ideas. The overall value of the company went up $100 billion, but most of that was because of this innovation premium. Now, all of you as business owners, you have a structure to your business. When it comes time for you to sell your businesses somewhere down the line, what if you were able to show the buyer that not only here's the revenues, here's how you your business model and what have you, but we also have an innovation program that we regularly, once a year or however, keep challenging ourselves, and over the years we kept developing these incremental increases, changing services and what have you. So I built that into the structure of my company. You can ask for an innovation premium, just like a lot of companies on Wall Street who do this effort can command and do get it. Now, these are big companies. Let's talk about Connie Enterprises. I also work with the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, and I work with some of the small business owners that work with the Port Authority, and one of them is Connie Enterprises. They were a $4 million construction company, and here's this smaller company, and the interesting thing about their business is that they don't have a lot of employees. They go to the union hall, right? And they have to, depending on the jobs, they start getting, these outside workers, and it depends on the job and what have you, who you get. But what he decided to do, how do I motivate my group, is he started, again, as the CEO, as the leader of that company, small company. He started saying one thing all the time: leadership. Find me 10%. Find me 10%. Once a week, on Fridays, he get his employees, the core managers of his, to report. 5-10 minutes, that's it. Your answer is, here's what I found for 10%, or I didn't find anything. Good, thank you, next. Find 10%. Can you do what you're doing 10% cheaper? Can you do what you're doing 10% faster? Can you do anything 10% better? Every week. That was the mantra. Start thinking this way. And he started making sure his manager, they expect a call, keep telling all these workers, by the way, we'll give you a bonus if you come up with an idea. But again, it's just leadership. It's a decision to say, I'm going to grow, and I'm going to start processes and systems to make it happen. So there's a lot of these bottom line, practical applications of what exactly innovation is. Boils down to process, boils down to leadership, it boils down to a decision that you make as to how important is this. And then, are you going to schedule some time to do this every week? So it's a decision. That's what it really comes down to. What the Institute does is basically we're compiling all this. So make it a little, instead of you having to go through 292 million articles, we basically are curating and bringing down some of these best war stories, proven processes, strategies, ideas, top innovation leaders into the Institute for us, for members who are, again, this is focused only for financial advisors who want to grow their businesses. So the one thing is, let's compile all this. The second thing I want to do, I better watch my time here. The second thing is, good. The second thing, let's pick one of these resources. Give you an example and a taste. I highly recommend that you buy this book. Or, one of you lucky people will win this book today. That's saying the magic word. I don't know what that is. But this book is very interesting. As I said, there's all this research being done out there. It's already there. It's in plain sight. It's there if you want it. This book was an 8-year study. An 8-year study where they started interviewing top, all the, jobs and, any name you can think of. They interviewed top CEOs of innovative companies, serial entrepreneurs, inventors, scientists, people who create new ideas. They talked to hundreds of them. I think it was somewhere around 600 of these people who regularly, successfully innovate. They gave them battery of tests. Let's see what their wiring's like. Here, take this profile, this, that, and the other thing. They asked them all kinds of questions. They watched them. They poked them with sticks. They really analyzed and studied this group of people. How do you do this? How do you innovate? Bottom line, there was no correlation on any psychological test. It wasn't that they were wired to be brilliant. It was basically a way of thinking. It was basically a way of being. It was behavioral traits that they decided to do that other executives, other business owners were not doing as much. There was a clear pattern. There was a clear pattern that there were behaviors, which means they developed them into skills, and they were much better at it than most other people. And that's why they could innovate and just come up with new ideas. But that's the good news. If it's a skill, it can be learned. But it's conscious choice. You have to say, I am going to start, learning these skills. And the interesting thing is, if it's a skill, it's like, if you can learn Six Sigma, which is a process, you can learn innovation. It's on the other side of the coin. It's also a process. But you can't use Six Sigma to build your way through efficiency into growth. That's de minimis. There's only so much you can get out of that process. It's important. You have to do it. It makes your business more efficient. But the other side of the coin is, how do you grow? And you find out that the processes and the way you do it is different than the way you do Six Sigma. It's a completely different way of thinking. But it's still a process that you can follow, emulate, study, develop. But that's what they came down to. It really came down to a conscious choice. And the great news, it's available to anyone in any industry, in any size company, anywhere in the world. That was the good news of this book. And it goes on into details. What was it that these people do more readily than the average business owner, than the average person who says they want to innovate? They spend more time doing these 4 things: questioning, observing, networking, experimenting. And we're going to go into each in detail. But as you can see, first it was the courage to say, okay, I'm going to innovate. It's a little difficult. It's a little different. I haven't done it as much. But courage, it's valuable. It's important. It'll help your business. It'll help you grow. It'll help you differentiate. It'll give you ideas and strategies so you can have unique ways of working in the community. All that comes out of innovation. But first it's, I'm going to do this. Then they spent more time doing these things. The key was that once they developed these discovery skills, it's one thing that they're called discovery skills. If you question a lot, if you observe a lot, if you're networking a lot, if you're experimenting a lot, you're learning a lot of different things. Now mix them up. Okay, it's alchemical. What they did is an alchemical process of having all these different inputs from very different places, and then they were just started mixing them up. And that's what's called associational thinking. Now think about it. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you read about some new business, new idea, new thing, and you said, "Oh my, that's genius. That's incredible." What was the situation about? Go back for a minute. think. Anybody remember the last time they said, oh, that's genius? When you heard of a new idea, a new strategy, new business, something new? Anyone? I bet you. Yes?
There's a store called Box. It's a web app that's a warehouse store. And they're growing at a quick clip.
Why did you think what they were doing was genius? Or what was it about them that inspired you to think that?
Because the concept of a warehouse store has been proven as a great concept. And to have a web application on your phone is just a different way to deliver that experience.
So it's basically someone who took something over here, this works, but let's deliver it a different way. Let's use this, let's put it together.
Correct.
9 out of 10 times, it's not this tremendous technological, that's the scary smart people. We dismiss that, something. It's usually when someone mixes two things together and we say, that's genius, and we say, why didn't we think of that? Because all it was taking this and taking that and putting it together. That's all it was. It's combination. It's associational of looking at different things and combining them. I'm sorry, yeah.
So I was gonna say, I played sports all my life and coached sports and stuff, so I'm in the process of writing like 7th grade or 9th grade, and they came out with an application called Team Snap. And Team Snap is something from your smartphone. It puts all the kids' information in there, all the parents' information, tells you when the games are, emails you where the games are. You're in a rush, you press a button, it tells you exactly where the game are. Google Maps takes you right there. It's an awesome application. Awesome.
But basically, it's combining a couple of different facets together and creating this new thing. That's how 99% of a lot of new innovations come into being. I mean, even Steve Jobs, you saw the quote before. He said, creativity is just connecting things. That's all it is. The iPhone was a tremendous hit because of combinations of ideas. It wasn't just technology. He took a course in college on calligraphy. By chance, he had nothing else to do. This should be interesting. He went in and he learned about calligraphy and how information can be beautiful. He took that idea of calligraphy, he took this idea of this new technology, let's make it beautiful. The design, everything he did was combining those two different ideas that made the thing as passionate response from people who loved, especially the initial and early launches. This is a great tool. So, I mean, it's these combinations. So, comments, thoughts? Are you all going to rush out and start combining stuff now? Okay.
What kind of combinations are you seeing in financial services these days?
Combinations in financial services. Well, some of the, I've been talking to some of the innovation, advisory board members that we have, and the big things that I just talked to one was in the banking area of how so many banks are adding in the touches that other firms have about experiences. How do you create an experience? And they're really thinking about, why does banking have to look and feel this way? Why does it have to be kind of the same? How do we create something that's completely different? And let's focus on experiences. Let's make people have fun at the bank. Let's have people do things differently. So by consciously saying, how do we change our orthodoxy, our traditional way of looking, of working, how do we then, let's look at other companies and who's doing experiments with how they're making their clients have experiences around their products. They're starting to come up with unique ways. I mean, for instance, some of the most inventive, creative banks in the world are in South Africa, quote unquote, okay, from a gentleman who travels the world and he works with banks. Their stores are basically modeled after Apple. They have cashless banks. You have a machine inside if you want, but they have a branch that's just experiential with their clients. They have tablets and different ideas on how to come in and get information, ideas and services. They have a community contests and stuff. So here's a cashless bank with an experience like an Apple store that creates community, and they're completely different than their competitors. So that's one example of mixing different ideas to create a completely different experience for clients. So this associational thinking, I mean, think Legos. The important thing with associational thinking is you need a lot of raw ideas, but disparate, crazy ideas from other industries. The more ideas you have, that's your tool set. So consider that. Let's say you had only green Legos and you had 5 of them. Create something. But let's say you spend time getting lots of different ideas and lots of different colors and lots of different shapes. Some of these top people who love Legos, they buy tons and tons of sets so they can have hundreds of pieces so they now can create all kinds of completely different things. But they need a lot of these ideas. So it's important that associational thinking needs to be fed with lots of ideas. And different ideas. They can't be, if you're only looking at one industry and how have we done this before, okay, these are great ideas, these are important ideas, this is where we came from, this is what we've learned, this is it, but this is only orange-colored Legos. Start looking at other industries and you'll start getting red, green, and completely different thoughts and ideas and stuff. Now put it together and now you can really create a new idea, a new novel approach with your client, and innovation. But first, you need to have the tool set. You need to have as many Lego pieces as possible. So associational thinking, one, make sure you're getting inputs. And also, once you have these different inputs, force them together. We're going to do an exercise coming up shortly where you're going to do that. We're going to show you that not only is it not hard, it's also fun. And you can stumble on creating an idea that no one else has done before because you are actually trying to mix and match different ideas. And this is how innovation happens. This is, you know, this book, by the way, has studied every major scientific discovery, every single, business entrepreneur. It all did it. The pattern is consistent. It's consistent. This is how it works. This is how it's done. But you need lots of ideas, cross-industry, and then force and try experiments. It's fun. And you will find some interesting things that could be very, very valuable for your clients and for your business. Now, another idea is, how do you keep thinking like this? A company we're going to study in a few minutes, IDEO, later in the morning, they require all their top thinkers, their top design innovation firm, to have on their desk a bunch of weird stuff. It's required. It's like the idea of a curiosity box. If you've worked on a previous project and you created something, have like a piece of it that you had on your desk. But the point is, as you're trying to think of a new idea, you're trying to be associational, how do you trigger that right brain? How do you trigger the being creative instead of just analytical? Well, if you see a lot of different ideas, it's just going to force your thinking in different areas in different ways. So to have this associational thinking, those are 3 major tools, and one of them we're going to go through. Any questions on that? Any ideas you have on how maybe you can apply that to your business?
Bill, can you share just maybe your experiences in utilizing the advisory boards to help generate those ideas you talked about?
Well, absolutely. How many of you have advisory boards, client advisory boards? Okay. Have a lot of fun with them. Use them creatively. Throw out ideas and see what you get back. And the more you think differently, not as an advisor, but as a small to mid-sized business owner, I think that's kind of important. Stop thinking of yourselves as just an advisor where this is the way an advisor acts and here's how an advisor is, and there is these orthodoxies. Beyond you being an advisor, bottom line, you are a small business owner. There are millions of other small business owners. What experiments are they trying? So don't just think as an advisor, think as a small business owner. And then you start asking different questions, and then you start experimenting with ideas. And we're going to go into forcing new and old combinations. But that's, again, one example of that. So, questioning. Let's go into that part. Questioning. If you think about your working with your clients and your business, what percentage of the time are you asking questions? You ever try kind of tracking that? How often are you asking questions? What kind of questions are you asking? Are you asking deep questions? Do you ask one, and then ask the next, and then ask the next, and then ask the, you know the 5 whys? You know, legend has it that Mr. Land, who invented the disposable camera, got the idea from his 3-year-old daughter. Now, maybe that's a legend, that he didn't want to admit that he just said, why? But he challenged, why do cameras have to be structured the way they are? Why is it priced this way? Why does it have to be manufactured this way? Why do we assume that this is the only way to do it? Why haven't we tried other things? You keep asking why. Toyota, their whole innovation effort, they institutionalized it. The 5 why system. They've come up with a lot of different, they've taken their chances and they've done some good things along the innovation front and took some chances. How did they do it? They just kept asking why. Not the first, not the second, but the third, the fourth, the fifth. So keep track of what kind of how often you're asking questions. Keep a notebook. Edison kept a notebook of ideas and questions. He had 3,500 of them by the time he was finished. 3,500, and he gave himself a quota. Every week, I have to come up with at least 10 questions and and new ideas from them. He forced the issue. He made it a choice. As the business, and running his business and trying to come up with more inventions and be more novel, he made it a point. It was a choice. I will continue to ask questions. Not the 1, not the 2, but challenge orthodoxies. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why does it have to be that way? What's the weirdest idea you can come up with as to how to do it differently? There's nothing wrong with asking that question. That's one of the most important questions you can ask. And that's how these innovators did it. They just kept asking why. There's a system called question storming. Before you rush out analytically and say, here's this problem, how do we solve it? Before you get into this analytical, how do we do this, step back. Have you asked all the questions? Start question storming. How many questions can you make up about this issue before you start to try to fix it? You may stumble on a perspective or one question that kind of leads, yeah, that could be something. But question storming, tracking your Q&A ratio, keeping a notebook, questioning. Now, another reason this is important, it has to do with your mind. Well, more technically, your brain. Neuroscientists, social scientists have been studying how you think with such amazing detail, it is scary. With MRI, they can see you thinking. They're really mapping out how we, as human beings, think. And what are the processes? What goes on in the brain? What happens? One thing that they've all uncovered is the brain automatically has shortcuts. Think about your business. Think about it in general. Don't you look for shortcuts sometimes? So much time, so much, how do I, okay, first answer that comes in. But the brain actually works that way. When new information comes in, it's like a filing system. And the first thing when new information comes in is, okay, what else is in here that's like this? Oh, okay, this is, all right, so this is what I know previously. Okay, so let's add it to what you already know. New information, add it to what you already know. That's what the brain does. That's how it works. The other thing is, when it doesn't know what to do with information, again, it infers, it interprets. Have you ever had a conversation with someone where you said, this is really interesting, and this is what I'm doing, and what have you, and the person then looks at you and says, oh, what you're telling me, oh, that's like this. And you look at the person and say, well, yeah, it's like this, but it's not that. But what the person did in his brain, the first thing is, you're trying to give new information to this person. And the first thing they're doing is they're kind of trying to say, what do I do with this new information? Oh, it's like this other thing. Again, you go into your brain. The brain is looking for the shortcut. And the shortcut says, okay, it's like this. Okay, good, let's put it in here. You just got new information. What did you do? You related it to what you already know and to the past. You didn't take the new information, okay, what's really new about it and what can I do with this? Because that's the way the brain works. Now, if you know the brain looks for shortcuts, if you know in your business, because I know we're all constrained. I'm a small business owner. I mean, I understand time, money, effort, limit. So we look for shortcuts. Why can't we see opportunities like some of these other people do? Because we look for shortcuts. And the brain is already conspiring against us to, all right, let's shortcut. We can't see a new opportunity because we're all relating everything to the past. So how, if you know this, how do you get around that? How do you become more innovative? How do you work with that? Questions. As the second question, as the third question. That's, again, why questioning is so important. It gets you deeper and you're digging more, and you have to watch how many times you're asking questions. Any feedback on that?
So us asking questions is one thing. Implementing that upon all of the people that we work around is another. So any thoughts on how we can have a questioning environment where everyone is constantly questioning everything, which is the building blocks for
Well, it comes back to, remember the stories I told you about the CEOs. What did they do? They came in with the charge, grow this business. Just like all of you, you're here because you want to grow your business. And you don't want to just follow other people's best practices. You want to come up with your own best practices. You want to differentiate. You want to have unique ways of working in your community and be seen as that. So you're working with a bunch of people. Leadership. What Whitman said. Okay, everyone, I expect ideas. We're going to create a system where we're going to collect these ideas. And we're going to keep asking for ideas. Our newsletter. By the way, you send in an idea? It's the leadership of just saying, we want everyone to, you're building a culture. And it takes you as leaders of your business, as you're getting more people, as you're developing it, as you're growing to the next level, that's what you want to have. You want to have people who are going to help you grow. And setting the tone and the culture before that.
If I can, I'll just chime in on that. I think one of the best examples probably within our direct industry is Bridgewater Associates, right? I mean, he's been recognized, the CEO of Bridgewater has been recognized as building a culture which questions everything. That's his entire corporate culture, is hiring people which question everything. And he recently did an interview, I think it was on CBS or something like that, and he specifically talked about the need to leave hubris at the door across the organization. And by leaving hubris at the door, it allows everybody to question everything. And he specifically built Bridgewater into the world's largest hedge fund just by doing that. So I think your points go on culture is probably one of the most relevant things, is besides the leadership, is to actually build a culture around allowing people to question and making it an acceptable behavior.
And the culture of your firm is your decision. And it's what you choose to do. If you want to be more innovative, these are some of the suggested, based on proven innovators, what they've done, what they did and how they instilled it to start making sure that they were always coming up with new ideas. So question, observing, okay? Let's talk about perception for a minute. Perception. There's looking, right? And then there's seeing. There's hearing, right? And then there's listening. Looking and hearing are physiological. You do that no matter what you do. That's it. You're wired for it. That's what you do. Physiological. But when any police department in this world, one of the first things they teach new recruits is how to see what's going on. Don't rush into a situation. Man down, situation going on. All kinds of things are going on. You don't run into that situation. You do that, you do not ascertain exactly what's going on, you could be dead. Or you could have not gone to a situation in the right amount of time to save somebody else. So what do they teach you? They teach you don't rush in. Walk in, look to the corner, look to the other corner, check out what's happening. Oh, come here, we need you, come over here. You notice New York City Police, right? They kind of take a, my father-in-law told me that. And he basically said they are taught how to look, how to see the situation. So it's more intentful, and it's a skill. And any police department, you talk to police people, you see it, it's automatic in them. When they're walking in a room or anything, they're always looking around. It's a skill that they've been trained, and it's a little more than just physiological. It's intent for specific, how do I really see what's going on? Hearing and listening. Listening. When you're listening, your blood pressure goes up. When you're listening, your heart rate goes up a little bit. When you're listening, it's work. You're more intentful, and that's why you get probably going to be tired after listening to me after the rest of this day. But it's not just hearing. It's also a skill to really pull out information. So when we talk about observing, it's really observing customers and companies and spending time listening and looking and move it out of physiology, and that's something that these top innovators spend time doing. They're very observant, they're very intentful, they're very aware, and they develop that as a skill to really be aware. And asking questions also brings out a lot of these opportunities. Networking. These top innovators, again, network, but they really network cross industry. They want as many different ideas as possible. The more varied, the better. Remember your Lego set. You want as many colors, as many shapes as possible. So when you network, yes, it's great to have networking with other peers in the industry, and that's great. You talk to each other about that, but set a plan to make sure you're starting to build and talk to other small to mid-sized business owners like you, okay? How do they handle their issues? Are you the only industry that deals with regulation and regulatory issues? There are others. Make friends with some of them. How do you handle it? What have you found out? But it's a conscious decision. When they network, they go across industry. Well, I'm out of time. I'm going to tell you this great story, but I'm going to maybe over lunch. But networking, it's amazing what you can do if you have a really broad network that's focused like you are on innovation, on growth, on learning new things and ideas. So find those people. That's what I'm trying to find in the Institute, because we have a website that's going to be focused on developing a social innovation hub where people can come in and share ideas. So if your marketplace, or find groups that can get you hooked up to many different types of people. But that's the why networking is very important. Experimenting. One thing all these top innovators do is they're constantly experimenting. Once a week, they try something. Experimenting, cheap, quick, easy experiments. You have an idea, you're talking to a client, something, something triggered, try it. Try it next week. Cheap, easy, just try it. Try an experiment. Let's see if I do this, what happens. Let's see if I send this out, let's see what happens. They're constantly trying. Failing is not a problem. The more you fail, the more you're also learning. You're getting quicker to the real good idea. But they're always trying, they're always experimenting. So use tools. By the way, you'll hear later about Lord Abbott has a great tool for you to do. Quick, cheap, easy experiments in their program, which we'll learn about later. But again, it's find ways to continuously do experiments, prototypes, try things. So I think at this juncture, those are the basic skills that 99% of successful innovators who come up with new revenue streams, that come up with new ideas, that are constantly challenging their orthodoxy, this is how they do it. They take these 4 discovery skills. That's the raw material. Questioning, observing, networking, experimenting. That generates tons of new ideas. Then they sit down and use associational thinking of how do we take this that this industry is doing, and how do we take this that our industry is doing, and what about this other idea I just read about? Okay, let's take this, let's add this, and then let's this. This is innovation. This is what it looks like. That's how it works. That's how 99, again, all those successful innovators have pattern of behavior. That's what it is. They do this 50% more of their time than the average business owner. They even quantify that. So it's not that they do that, they do it a lot. They schedule it. They put it in their plan. What is your goal for your firm? I want to innovate. I want to come with new ideas. I want to keep changing. Everything's changing around me. I want to keep up with it. Well, how are you going to do that? Schedule time to mix ideas from these 4 skills. Make them into skills. So we're going to go and do an exercise, but before we do that, any questions? Feedback? That's the formula to innovation. You now know what it is. There it is. It's yours. We're going to play with it right now. So,
Okay, good. So thanks, Bill. So we're going to do a quick exercise, and in the interest of time. All right, so we've prepared what's called the alchemy of new ideas. And we're going to spend here, we had originally planned to spend about half an hour. I think what we'll do is we'll spend about 20 minutes doing this. We're going to assemble as groups of, let's say, about 5 to 6 people at a table right next door in the boardroom, 5 or 6 people at a table. Each table will be given a picture, a sheet of paper with a couple pictures on it. And your charge is to utilize some of the skills that Bill talked about to try to combine those pictures into a novel new product or service. So the example I think that we have on one of them is to take a picture. There was a picture of a, correct me if I'm wrong here, a duck, a
bunch of
bananas, and what was the other one, Bill?
cheap flip-flops.
Okay, cheap flip-flops. So
Totally disparate.
Duck, banana, and
no
cheap flip-flops.
Possible combination in there. And then the question was, create a business or service out of that. Figure out the components. The duck goes quack, makes noise, has feathers, is soft. Bananas come in bunches. They're sweet. They're yellow. The last one was cheap flip-flops. You use that on vacation, it's cheap, you can throw them away. Okay, so what one group did is they just, and again, there's no right or wrong answer. Have fun with this. Innovation is fun. It's something that you want to experiment. There's no right or wrong. But one person said, okay, here we go. Feathers, a pillow has feathers, and we sell them in multi-packs and bunches that are disposable, and that will be easy to go on vacation with.
So disposable travel pillows.
Disposable. That's an idea. By forcing these three different things that have completely disparate, make them into something. No right, no wrong. Have fun with it. You're going to do number 2. Force new and odd combinations. They're all going to be associational thinkers.
Okay, so 20 minutes we'll spend right now, starting right now, in the boardroom next door, form into groups around the round tables, 5 or 6 to a table, and your table should have the sheets on them to get started.